To Christ-Centered. This is an amazing podcast today. I got my good friend, Dr. Josh. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing amazing, coach. Thanks so much.
So obviously you hail from the great nation of Canada.
Yes, sir.
The chiropractic up there is it's a little different in that you've got a school that isn't necessarily the kind of the principled philosophical on fire type of college, yet
hmm
you are this very strong principled chiropractor. So where did you end up going down that road? What was the thing that lit you on fire?
Um, Actually, it's amazing. My journey into chiropractic is kind of supernatural to begin with. I had a really good friend who actually taught at the school in Toronto, and he was a believer, fellow believer. And at the time, I had finished university. And I was kind of like trying to figure out what to do, and God spoke to him and said, "Tell that boy about chiropractic." And so he told me, he just came up to me and said, "Have you ever considered becoming like a chiropractor?" And I was like, "Well, what's all that about?" So he explained the art, the science, and the philosophy of chiropractic. And yeah, it was like right then I knew that's exactly what I had to do. And so my journey into chiropractic was very much supernatural from the beginning. So I think because of that, I always had a tendency to steer more towards the more philosophy part of chiropractic, anyways, just because. I know God preordained me to be a chiropractor, and so that's kind of where it led to. Even though I did appreciate all the science and all the, all the technical stuff that we have to learn, but the passion really comes down to knowing that God called me this and that He had a purpose for this right from the beginning.
Amen. Yeah, certainly the philosophy is based on science. I actually one of the CE courses I teach is that yesterday's philosophy is today's science. Like
Mhm.
ultimately, our philosophy is the science.
Yes.
But for you, you have. I want to go back to some philosophical things in a moment. But for
Yeah.
you, you have a real just love for people. You have an amazing grace that you apply towards humanity that drives you. You can be philosophical all you want, like the Bible says. If you've got all the philosophy in the world, basically, you're just a clanging cymbal
hmm
unless you love people. Without
hmm
love, who cares what you know? And
Yeah. So
so for you, you've got this deep love for people. That's what I believe makes you a great chiropractor. Anything you could tell us about where that came from, or how your mind got to that place where you just do this because you just really love people?
yeah. So that's a really fantastic question, Dr. Ben. Because obviously, everyone who is a chiropractor, and even many other healthcare practitioners, I believe they've get into their profession because they want to help people. There's that desire to, that humanist, caring for others type of underpinning. But for me, I think the real drive and the thing that actually is, and it's amazing, ever since I started coaching with CCC, has been really kind of pushing it to the next level is just my love for the Father and what He has for me, right? And the closer I get to Him, the more I feel like my identity is really grounded in who I am as a son, right? First and foremost. And that relationship is the most important thing. And because that is becoming so much more stronger, that just allows me to actually serve more. So seeing patients, I see them in a different angle now with the Father's love, because the more I'm focusing on the Father, the more I'm able to actually truly serve with the compassion and actually step out in things that just I never thought I would do, right? So like some of the things we do in CCC, like calling our patients, after their first, adjustment and things like that, which I did years ago, but I did it more as a practice management thing. Now I do it because I'm actually really care about the person. Like I want to know, are you okay? Like how did you do after your adjustment? And to really walk them through it. So for me, it's kind of a little double pronged in the fact that my passion in serving my patients stems from my relationship with my father, but also I have to give credit where credit is due. Being around amazing leaders like yourself, Dr. Ben, and Dr. Rob and Dr. Eric, and just watching how you guys care and love for us as clients, but I know how you care for your patients. It just has raised the bar in my desire to be able to serve the way that God called me to, right? So I'm not trying to serve out of obligation or out of trying to get something from somebody, but because
Amen.
I truly want to serve.
That's so cool. And we were both on a prayer call, I know, not too long ago, where Bishop
Hmm.
Sharona, who's my coach, he had said that we have to remember as we see somebody lying on the table, that is another one for whom Christ died.
Mhm.
And when you keep that in mind, it really changes your compassion and your focus on people as individuals. We have always looked at when somebody walks in the clinic that since we prayed for God to bring us people, well, then we're going to assume God brought us that person.
Mhm.
And then we're also going to make another assumption that he didn't leave them there and walk out the door, but he's standing there waiting to see how we do.
Absolutely.
Are
Yeah.
you really showing the love for my people like you say you will? And
Yeah,
so we've
absolutely.
got to make sure we live up to that.
Yeah, and I see that play out too, and even like previously in different I've learned many scripts over the years. I've been practicing for 25 years, so lots of scripts, lots of things, and you learn all these different procedures, and the heart of a lot of them is to try to make sure the patient stays. You want them to start care, and then want them to continue, which is a good outcome. But when you change that perspective of I'm trying to get it because I want them to stay versus every procedure basically is based in love, and I'm holding a patient accountable because I love them. I'm offering the best care possible because I love them, right? And I'm adjusting them because I love them, right? And so everything is all based on the love that I have received that I can actually serve them with versus I'm just trying to do it just to make a buck. And the
Yeah,
amazing thing is sorry to interrupt, Dr. Ben, but the amazing thing is when you seek out the bucks and you seek out the procedure for numbers, the numbers and the dollars are hard to find. But when you serve out of love, the numbers and the dollars are so much easier to come because that's not your focus.
yeah, it's amazing. Of course, is when we put out things like 150 is a new million and all these types of things, you hope people know. Listen, you have to know if you know us at all, and if you don't, who cares? Like they said, for those who know you, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't, none is possible. But the reason for the money is because of the service, because of the love for people. John Maxwell wrote a book many years ago. It's called "There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics,"
Mm.
because there's just ethics. And when it comes to love, another thing, sort of an old joke, but very true that we tell is when you're saying you love your people, really you love the good patients that paid. So like Mary, hey Mary, you made all your visits this week. I love you. Hey Mary, you referred somebody. I really love you. Mary, you prepaid? Oh, come here, have some Dr. Ben, like that. We really love Mary at that point, but the bottom line is, do we love the people, as Jesus said, the least of these, which would include people that were not good patients or didn't start or didn't smell so hot when they come in for their adjustments or a little ornery and hard to deal with. That's where
Yeah.
God's going to really test your heart. And if you can truly love, then the good ones are going to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the I think a lot of it really comes down to, and what I've learned personally working with you and working with CCC is the fact that the more I love, the more I value myself, the more I can value others too as well. And so, giving away care for free and just doing it just, for nothing is not serving anybody's purposes for the most part, and it's
No.
not serving out of true love, right? And so but it comes down to you know what, God's valued me enough that he not only died but he brought me into this profession to serve. And when I see how much he's invested into me and how much I'm valuable, I have no problem serving at a higher level because of value.
I'm glad we went down this road just because, when I look at you, you're this incredible connector. People love you, and I just know your heart and your passion for people, and you want to do right by others, and you swear by your own hurt, as the Bible says. You really put other people first, and I just really love and appreciate that about you. I do want to get back to though, philosophically. So you were
Yeah.
talking about, you came across this thing called chiropractic,
Yes.
and you just felt God called you to it. Then philosophically, was there an idea, a piece of philosophy, something that was early on the thing that really transformed your way of thinking?
Yeah, just it's funny because growing up in the Canadian system and speaking as a Canadian doc, it was funny because compared to my colleagues down in the States, I didn't really realize this until, getting out of the bubble and talking and being with American doctors, how much we have such a socialized medicine and how everything is so very much controlled by the government and like things are just expected. You get bump and bruise or something, you go see your doctor and he gives you something from the outside in to serve. And so the philosophically for me, just the whole inside, above, down, inside out was so contrary to our culture as a Canadian. Even though chiropractic was, discovered by Didi, right? A Canadian
Yeah, that's
uh,
right.
who quickly left the Canada to go to the States to to really establish chiropractic. But that whole countercultural type of philosophy. So for me, it was not only just a healthcare change, but also it's completely contrary to how most Canadians think, which is very, very crazy. So that philosophy for me basically not only affected, how I practice and how I see, but even just how I see the world really completely changed with chiropractic. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question the way you want to talk, but
No, no, I mean, similarly to what we go through at life when I was in second quarter, you'd sit through this philosophy class and you'd realize that what you believed about medicine, like you're saying as a whole, the entire socialized medical system and how broken that is when it comes to actually getting people totally
mm,
well. Well, our medical system certainly not any better and probably in many ways worse here where, the whole idea of well-being is what's the next medication you need like with the VA, we have something called the
mm,
VA in the US where people that have been, formerly in the military or been to war can get treated at VA hospitals. And there's this old saying, somewhat of a joke that goes, you have a chance to die twice for your country, once at war and a second time at the VA.
yeah.
And in fact, I had a patient come in recently and he's a Green Beret. I mean, the guy's just an absolute stud, but he was exposed to something. They didn't tell him he was. He didn't know he was. But as he's come home, he's just deteriorated. And as he
Mhm.
goes back to the VA, which is kind of almost like a Canadian version of medicine,
Yep.
as he goes to there, they just keep him one drug, then another drug till it got up to 15 drugs. And he's a young guy again, super stud, but now couldn't feel more weak, worthless, and in agonizing pain
Mhm.
and sickness. And that's your answer. So your answer is just to keep loading up somebody with drugs that
Mhm.
aren't working and just keep giving him another drug to the point
Mhm.
where you've just completely decimated this guy's life who not only fought for our country, but was the elite of the elite special forces. That is not something I understood before chiropractic school, before second quarter.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's the system. Eventually, they must come up with some combination of chemicals that are going to be the best solution for this guy. And once you are opened up, once you've realized and come into the light that that's the wrong way to go, it'll fire you up.
Absolutely. It's funny because the kind of tying into what you're saying, it's one of the things that comments I get consistently with new patients because often majority of patients who come to see us have been to everywhere. They've seen to every doctor, every specialist. Usually the first thing they say is you're my last hope. I don't want to do the surgery. I'm tired of taking drugs, right? And then once we go through the whole process of explaining everything, they're like, why hasn't someone told me this before? And it's even today, which I find mind-boggling. Chiropractic's 100 and some odd years, 100 was it 150 years that it's amazing that there's still people who just don't know what we do, and it's kind of a tragedy in many ways, but also gives me hope the fact that there's so many more people that we can help.
Yeah, you keep going to. I wanted to point this out also. So, at one point the idea was you got to do this,
Yeah.
you need to see a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that eventually didn't work for you personally.
Yeah.
And so you've now gone a different direction. That's one that I've embraced because the what I found when we were really just pushing just straight up volume, and
Yeah.
volume makes a lot of philosophical sense because obviously we love God.
Yeah.
We love God's people. We know He's called us to save the lives of the
Yeah.
people. So then there's this thought that, well, then I must have to go see millions of people,
Yes.
despite the fact that maybe for some of us it's burning you out, hurting
Right.
you, not something that you really want to do. And so
Yeah.
you've kind of come full circle there. Kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's amazing because the old model of how I was practicing, just trying to increase volume, and it took me a lot of years to kind of break my brain or break out of that habit of looking at number of visit volume as being the real high mark or the mark of success, really in practice, because For the most part, I was sacrificing a lot of things, my physical health. I was exhausted to the point when we made our first conversation, I was on the verge of actually quitting chiropractic because I was done. I was burnt out. I was tired. And just trying to seek and trying to I just didn't know how if it was physically possible to actually get to any of the, any quality of life. And I don't and I mean that in a real sincere way, like the quality of life of having good family time, enjoying my time in practice versus looking at it as a drudgery or as a I just got to get through these numbers, right? I got to get these numbers through so I can go to the next, next phase. And so being introduced to this whole different way of thinking of producing and providing more quality of care per person and adding different verticals in the office and just changing up our outlook of serving each person really with real true quality care. Yeah, just transformed it. So now I still at times look, I'm like, how many people did I see? Most of the times it's like, I really don't care how many I see because I had a great day. We got to take care of a lot of amazing people, and I have more energy at the end of the shift than I did at the beginning. And that's, I think, is a good indication that I'm on the right track, is finishing off a shift more energized than when I started.
That's amazing. Yeah, and the idea, of course, that we've pioneered here is the 150 is the new million, where you don't
Yeah.
have to see. I mean, I think it's great for people that see 500, 800, 1,000. That's great, but for most people, like you said, that's could be exhausting or
Mhm.
create burnout or
Yeah.
just be unsustainable. And a lot of people, I've really started to feel, there's this huge percentage of our client base that they felt like failures, because
Yeah.
they can never get to these astounding numbers that the guys on stage were talking about. And
Mhm.
and so going this direction, like you said, I love that you have more energy at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, but also tell us about your last couple of months because it's also gone pretty
Yeah,
well
yeah,
for you.
it's amazing. So, when once we started down this road, the whole idea of, 150 is the million, to me it seemed like a very cool thing for my American brothers, right? I'm happy for you guys. I don't know if it's going to happen up in Canada because we're in a different country. But the more that I've been walking it through and the more God's been showing us that and actually it's I think when we have when more Canadian brothers can hear, when they come to the Toronto seminar and they get to hear what we're going to talk about or what you're going to talk about, Dr. Ben. I think Canada is ripe for to being the next country of being to embracing this and seeing more docs get to this level. So yeah, we had two unbelievably record months that where I'm seeing probably a third of the volume that I did before. And I'm seeing we have more cash flow than we did at my actually most busiest. So I think at the busiest, I think we were like 657, maybe 750, something like that. And we have more monthly cash flow than we did at that number. So at like 250. So, I'm not at the 150 million, but we're working that way. But still it's exciting and encouraging to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, it's awesome. Last time we'll touch on, just because again, I think you're the super connector.
Thanks, coach.
I've always had to learn. I had to go back to get my master's in psychology just to learn how to connect with people. So that didn't come to me naturally. I think
Yeah.
for you, they just see your face, they just come across you, and people are going to love you right away. And it reminds me of an old philosophical saying from Dr. Dick Santos. Used to be a big speaker back in the day. He's up with the Lord right now, but he'd say to everybody, here's my practice management advice: just take care of the folks.
Mhm.
Just take care of the folks. And that reminds me a lot of you and what you're doing. So, kind of final words here from your heart. What is it that is constantly kind of in your soul, in your spirit, that you believe makes you such a good connector where people are drawn to you like they are?
You know what? I think the one thing that I try to do, and I don't think it's consciously, I think it's subconsciously. I think every one of us, God has a purpose for every one of our lives, right? And when a patient comes into my office, no matter their complaint, where they're at, their life history, I always try to look out to see where their calling is, who's God called them to be, right? Like I'm trying to, through all the different layers, trying to figure out who that person is and the life that God's called them to live. And so I kind of see myself almost as not as a chiropractor, but someone who puts not only the bones back into place, but trying to help people rediscover their identities in their lives and who they're called to
Wow.
be, right? And so that's kind of, I think, because I've been meditating on this a little bit too as well lately, Ben. Like what, like how do I, see patients and you know, um, what I do, and I think that's the bottom line is I'm always trying to see what their calling is, right? And so because people have masks, they have wounds, they have all these things that they come in with us, all this baggage, and sometimes we get caught on the baggage, but I think we forget the person. And I think that's the key is focusing on who that person's really their true identity, who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're restoring wholeness. Speaking of
Mhm.
D.D. Palmer, I think he'd be proud because that was certainly his vision for chiropractic, as it was never for back pain or even cancer. It was for transformation. It was for people to reach their God-given potential, to achieve purposes and fulfill their destiny. That was ultimately the goal of chiropractic. So I know that the former Canadian is looking down from heaven and loves you. So I
Give me a thumbs
appreciate
up.
you being on, Doc.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I just want to thank you for all your effort, energy you put into CCC and to all of us docs. And yeah, you're going to have some pretty amazing crowns in heaven for all the work that you do.
Well, that's all. At the end of the day, it's all that matters, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Well, bless you, everybody. I appreciate you listening and watching. And remember who you are.